Yes.
And it was a very nice question and answer session by a journalist to him directly.
Yes.
I found it so interesting. I'm still reading it.
Is that his Jesus of Nazareth
Yes.
series? Yes. Yes, that is, in my opinion, that is Pope Benedict's magnum opus. I believe he will go down in history as that being his, just that, his magnum opus. That will be what he'll be most remembered and referenced for moving forward. All right?
There's a lot of answers regarding Jesus and the life of Jesus.
Yes, and he did an excellent job of blending modern scholarship. He's the most, I would say he is the most brilliant theologian we've had in modern times. And we were so privileged to have him as Holy Father for the time that he was reigning. That he was so able to not deny modern critical scholarship, but to take the best of it and the best of traditional scholarship and blend it together in a very readable way, so that it didn't deny either, nor demonize one or the other, but to blend them in such a way. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We underestimate the contribution, in my opinion, of what Pope Benedict, Cardinal Ratzinger gave to the church. And I would strongly recommend getting his Jesus of Nazareth, of the 3 books. It's a trilogy, really, of books about the life of Jesus. I mean, he did an absolutely brilliant job with that. So, yes. So, I'm taking this as our means by which we are going to approach understanding, reading, and interpreting the first 11 chapters. Now, it's interesting that the Pope mentions the first 11 chapters. Why did he do that? Because the first 11 chapters, if you will, are the most controversial. It's in the first 11 chapters of Genesis that we have the creation, the fall, the flood, and the tower story. And how are we to approach that? Okay? And then after chapter 11, we get to chapter 12, which is the story of Abraham, which is written more properly as we would understand history than the first 11 chapters. So that there's kind of a shift in the quality or the style of the narrative. Does that make sense? Whereas the first 11 chapters are metaphorical of giving us truths, in chapters 12 forward, it's more like the kind of narration that we would consider real history. Okay? So it's just something to be aware of. And I'm looking at my time. I think I'm going to be able to make it. So, the other big question that always comes up in our study of the Bible, and particularly Genesis, is what do we think about evolution? Okay? So,
Darwinian.
So this is a rendition of the evolution of whales, for example.
Right.
Okay? Very, very interesting. Here's the evolution of birds that we read in National Geographic and so forth. And then, of course, the evolution of humans is also very popular from apes. So are we to just throw all of this out and say, oh, this is a bunch of, and just accept, you know, God created Adam and Eve, not Og and Grog, you know, millions of years ago. This is just, I don't even want to look at it. Well, I think that that's putting our heads in the sand. And again, this took me many, many years to come around to it. And again, without going into a lengthy discussion, I would reference this as a very good article that I found on a very succinct article. It's on Catholic Answers. You see Catholic Answers? And it's a tract called Adam and Eve and Evolution. I don't want to read all of this, but I will give you some of the highlights. And here's some of the highlights. Pope Pius XII warned us, what is the literal sense of a passage is not always obvious. Okay, and he goes on. This is from his other encyclical, Divino Afflante Spiritu, which is an encyclical on the Bible itself. On. Oh, look at this. Humani Generis comes up again. Paragraph 37. So paragraph before I just read. Point is, this is an excellent summary article that you can read on your own, that I would strongly recommend if you want to know what the Catholic position is. What is the basic summary of it? What is the bottom line on this? Let me give you the succinct answer without reading that whole article or to get to the point of the article is this. It is not contrary to our faith to believe that God used the mechanisms of what we call natural selection to form the body of what we would call Adam and Eve. Okay? That doesn't go against our faith. Again, remember, the whole story in Genesis 1 and 2 is written in a metaphorical way that all people can understand. Moses had, and God had no intention of writing, well, you see, over millions of years of time, these creatures developed and eventually became human beings. No, he said God formed man out of the dust of the earth. Well, in a real sense, when you look at evolutionary theory, that's what it in essence says. That when you go all the way back to it, we come from the substance of the earth through a period and a process. Now, what the church does affirm is two things. One, God is the principal creator of all life. Okay? So if he used the process of evolution to form the body of man, he is still behind the process of forming the body of man over these millions of years. Does that make sense? Okay? It did not happen naturalistically without him. The second thing is that at a certain point in this evolutionary process, God infused his soul into the body that was formed. And that creature became a human being, the first parents. Okay? If we go back to this article, that's what the essence of this topic is. Okay? In this regard, Pope Pius stated, when, however, there is a question of another conjectural opinion, namely polygeneticism, the children of the church by no means enjoy such liberty, for the faithful cannot embrace that opinion which maintains either that after Adam there existed on earth true men who did not take their origin through natural generation from him, as from the first parents of all, or that Adam represents a certain number of first parents. The theory is this. Polygeneticism says that through this evolutionary process there were a number of people groups that are formed in different places at different times, and God could have just made them all that way. This goes contrary to our thoughts that we are all generated from a single parent lineage. Because if that were true, then there would be different Adams and Eves, and that implies that they had different tests in order to test whether they would be faithful or not. Whereas the church is always taught we've been generated from a single lineage, a single parent. It's called monogeneticism as opposed to polygeneticism. That's the technical theological term. And so what Pope Pius XII is saying is that we cannot hold to polygeneticism as a viable theory as to the origin of all humans. That we have to affirm that there was a single parent through which and by which we all are descended. We are descended through one single parent. And again, this goes back to what he said about how the first 11 chapters of Genesis are telling us truths in a metaphorical way. So it may not be literally true that the first man was formed out of dust and God breathed into him. It may have been over a process of time that the body, the physical body, was formed through these processes, guided by God over a period of time. But what it does say is that at a certain point in our past, the body that developed was infused by God's soul, and at that point, it ceased to be a mere animal, and it became a human being. And it's through that parent's lineage that we all descend and share heritage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the truth of the Adam and Eve story in Genesis 1 and 2. But it's not literally that. The church doesn't say we have to believe it was literally that. Are you following me? That we can accept the truths brought out through our natural sciences if they are in fact true. And there's reasonable evidence to support a natural progression for the body to be formed this way under the direction and motivation of God that eventually landed a certain creature that God then infused with himself, that man became no longer a creature but a human being by which and through which all of us are descended and take our physical descendancy or lineage from and spiritual responsibility. Am I making sense? Okay? So that's important to bring out, that the church is not hiding its head in the sand. It's not saying that evolution is all a lie and all of this. It's saying if this is what our natural history is showing us, then we can conclude that God used these processes to form the body, but that the soul was infused at a certain point that separated this creature from the rest of the animal kingdom. Okay? Are you with me? You good?
Yes.
All right. If you want, again, more specifics, you want details, you want references, this is a good place to start. You go to Catholic Answers or Catholic.com, look up Adam and Eve and evolution, and you'll get this tract. And you can read it for yourself and look at the references to it. So I think that this is the way in which we must approach this. We can understand that the Bible is true and our natural sciences are true. Our natural sciences are telling us that our bodies were formed over a period of time. It's very possible. Am I saying it's absolutely true? No, I'm saying it's very likely. It's very possible our natural sciences are correct. And the truths of our faith teach us that no matter how our bodies were formed, the spirit or the soul that's infused into that body is directly created by God that separates us from the animal kingdom. So we are an incarnation of God. God made us originally incarnations of himself, both the physical and spiritual. Everyone good? So this way we don't have to deny our natural sciences. We can accept the truths that are there that do not contradict, or as the Holy Father said, do not overstep their limits. Maybe the conclusions that are drawn are maybe a little bit too far-reaching. They're taking it farther than what our faith is giving to us. Because we have revelational truth that we hold to. God has revealed to us. Okay? We just have to discern it. Right? So, I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, but I think I made the basic point. And again, if you want more information, there's a good, faithful site to begin if you're really interested, and they can take you into other, more deeper references. But I'm telling you, read the tract by Pope Pius XII, Humani Generis. It's the greatest tract that I know that helps understand some of these tough questions. Now, all of this, we're about to read Genesis 1. And I would be remiss if I did not tell you the motivation behind all of this, of our Bible study. What do you mean motivation? The Catechism of the Catholic Church. If you don't have a copy of it, you need to get it. Paragraph 1. You open up your the first paragraph. What does it say? God. Just like the Bible. In the beginning, God. Stop right there. And when we get our study in Genesis, we're going to stop right there. That is the most profound beginning of probably any book that we have in human. In the beginning, God. In the Catechism, the very first word of the first paragraph is God. And what does it say? Infinitely perfect and blessed in himself, in a plan of sheer goodness, freely created man to make him share in his own blessed life. Did you hear that? First sentence of the